Good morning, guys. Captain Dylan Hubbard here at the iHeartMedia Empire for our News Radio 970 WFLA Real Animals Radio Show. We got Captain Ray Markham in studio this morning. What's up, Ray?
Good morning, good morning.
We are going to get started here on the show very shortly, so stay tuned. Don't forget to call us this morning, 1-800-969-9352 if you want to chat fishing, talk all things inshore, nearshore, offshore, fishing regulations, FWC, closures, openings. We got it all here during the show. So join us, News Radio 970 WFLA. You can watch here, iHeartMedia app, the Hubbard's Marina Facebook page, whatever you want to do. Tune in. Thanks for watching, y'all. We're going to get started very, very shortly. Stay tuned.
Texas Attorney General
studio for this Saturday morning Real Animals radio show. Don't forget, you can call us if you want to chat fishing at 1-800-969-9352. Well, this week looks like we have a beautiful week ahead of us. The weather is looking good. Got a little weak cold front moving through the area today. Got some good tides over the weekend. This week, though, tides don't look that great.
Yeah.
Coming up on that first quarter.
Quarter moon.
Yeah, so a little slow this weekend tide-wise, but the fish have been biting pretty good, right? How have you been doing inshore, Ray?
Awesome. I'm telling you, the mackerel issue is just, it's crazy.
What do you mean?
Big mackerel. Lots of them, 6-7 pounds.
In the bay?
In the bay.
Nice.
In the bay, all along the coast, down at the bulkhead, near Manatee River. And the redfish, scattered schools of redfish they're big fish too. And I remember a couple of years ago fishing up the upper end of the bay in late December, catching 40-plus inch reds up there.
Wow.
And they're usually gone by October though. Mm-hmm. So I think it's, the weather seems to be changing. Last few years, the winters have been very mild, no freezes, which, I think we really need something like that.
Yeah.
And I was chatting with Frank Sargent the other day. Frank was telling me they were catching snook in Mobile Bay.
Yeah.
Snook in Mobile Bay.
It's nuts how far north.
That's Alabama for y'all that don't know.
Yeah. Which is not normal. But I think it has a lot to do with just a success story behind management, too. I mean, a lot of people in Tampa Bay is obviously a little frustrated that snook are reopening, but it seems like, in my opinion, I see a ton and tons of snook lately. I mean, it's crazy how many snook juveniles, too, ranging anywhere from 12 to 14 inches all the way up to 40 inches around the docks. And it seems like they were stacked like cordwood even behind that big fish kill. So it's pretty impressive how resilient Mother Nature can be in times.
Of all the fish I think that were affected, I think trout were probably affected the most. I saw very few trout, redfish, or snook that were dead in areas that I fished. Most of what I saw that had turned belly up were catfish and pinfish, small fish like that.
Yeah.
I just really didn't see them, but I know I wasn't everywhere, and those places where you saw just mats of floating dead fish, not places that I usually hung out.
Yeah, it's a good place to avoid.
Not if you're fishing and trying to catch fish. I mean, you can catch all you want in a net, but
yeah. We were the lucky recipients of a big dumpster over there in Kingfish Park, right?
Oh boy,
right west of Hubbard's Marina. So with that dumpster,
a little west wind and
yeah. With that dumpster, it gives you the unique opportunity to kind of see the amass of the amount of biomass that comes in there.
See what was getting killed.
Mm-hmm. And I saw a lot of redfish, trout, snook, but this red tide seemed to kind of move in a little bit slower, at least in Johns Pass area. So I feel like a lot of those fish move. I mean, they're not.
Oh, definitely.
They're not going to sit there and let that kind of happen, especially those fish that tend to move around in general. Like, for example, gag grouper, they tend to move on their own anyway. So when they feel something like that coming on, I feel like they have a good sense to get out of the way.
Yeah, well, I guess it's been around 11 or so years ago. I can't remember now, maybe 2010 or something. We had a bad red tide, and I was living down in Tennessee at the time, and that was one of the last places that I felt that was really getting affected, and I just saw fish disappearing. I didn't really see a lot of fish dying at the time, so I suspended my charters and just started riding around looking. Yeah. I ran all the way up to the upper end of the bay, the very north end of the bay, and caught 19 different species of fish one day.
Wow.
Same lure.
And I feel like what lure? Before we move on.
It's cow shad.
DOA cow shad.
DOA cow shad.
What's your favorite color?
Whatever the one they're biting the best on. But honestly, if I had to choose, DOA makes 4 different colors that have glow in it, glow in the dark. And mirror lure, I love the mirror lures. And essentially, if you can get it in front of a fish, they're going to eat it.
Yeah.
But that shad style body of most manufacturers are very good.
Yeah.
And they, if you're fishing it correctly, you're going to trigger a lot of reaction strikes, which is, it's a kind of a great thing. It doesn't have to be a perfect bait, but if you can get it in front of more fish. Yeah, I've had a few people get in front of them. Yeah, you're going to catch more. So
yeah, and that's
numbers thing.
That speaks to, in my opinion, the reason behind artificials. I mean, a lot of people ask, well, should I use an artificial versus live bait? And to me, inshore, it's a numbers game. If you know what you're doing and you can present that artificial lure naturally, then you can cover more area with that artificial lure, show your bait to more fish, and generally catch more. But if you don't know what you're doing with that lure, then it kind of restricts you.
Well, speaking to that, we've never had a trip that somebody on the boat didn't catch fish. And I usually fish with my customers, not because I want to get in their way, not because I want to catch the fish before they do or anything else, but I do realize sometimes there are specific ways that a fish is going to react to a lure and the kind of presentation you make to them. So it may be the lure that's not going to be effective that day, and you try something different, maybe even different color, you know. But to me, color is probably one of the last things that I look at, and probably more so it's the presentation. And if you're not a good caster and an accurate caster and can cast with distance, you're going to be operating at a handicap.
Yeah.
The further you can get it away, if you're fishing out of a boat, further you can get it away from the boat, less likely the fish will be apt to sense your presence.
Yeah.
Because every boat, I don't care what kind of boat it is, how good it is, if it's a $100,000 flats boat or whatever, when somebody steps down off a bulkhead into the sole of the boat, it's going to create a pressure wave, and that pressure wave is going to go out away from the boat, and the fish, they're going to feel it in their lateral line. So,
So no loud rap music?
Well, only if you're fishing for like mackerel and trolling and that kind of thing, believe it or not. And my brother had a Bertram 31 years ago, and they've always been known to be a design that would raise fish.
Yep.
And you talk to guys that are offshore fishing, particularly for billfish.
Oh, yeah.
There are boats, there are hulls that produce some sort of harmonic that seems to raise fish and get them to the boat.
We got a couple of them.
Yeah. It's a good thing for you.
Yeah, I mean, for me, a lot of times, especially when you're talking trolling, it has a lot to do with the motor, too. I mean,
Yes.
An inboard diesel that has an exhaust above the waterline is generally the best option for bill fishing or pelagic trolling, in my mind. An inboard diesel with exhaust below the waterline is still better, in my opinion, than an outboard, because that outboard going in and out of gear, that lower unit popping, definitely loud under the water. It's pretty crazy how loud that lower unit can be when it goes in and out of gear, and especially when you're like kingfish slow trolling and you're constantly pulling that motor in and out of gear. I feel like that's definitely doing something, and that's why they keep those slow troll live baits so far behind the boat on those kingfish boats.
Now, I know you guys troll ever so often, particularly on your way out, maybe on your way back or something like that. What lures particularly do you guys do best with? Do you do spoons, or is it mostly plugs?
It depends on the trip, what we're targeting species-wise, all that good stuff. But generally, the rule of thumb that we use is the first 25 to 35 miles from shore, planers and spoons is the way to go. It's going to be the most productive. It's going to give you the best option to catch mackerel, bonita, possibly kingfish, and others. And then once you're out there past 25, 30 miles, that's when we start switching to some of those plugs, like the lipped plugs.
Something that's not going to blow out. But
Yeah.
How many knots do you usually go?
Well, I mean, for us, we're trolling on our party boat trips, like our 5-hour half day, 39-hour, 44 hours. So we're typically trolling about 7 to 9 knots.
Okay.
So it's somewhat of a
That's
fast
moving
troll.
for a lot of plugs. I mean, some of them are not well balanced. I know Mirror tank tests every one of their plugs before it goes out the door. So it's going to run true.
Yeah, and we use a lot of different plugs, but most of what we use trolling wise at those higher rates of speed, especially when we're approaching 9 knots, is the Rapala X-Rap Magnum 30, 40.
Terrific lures.
The Nomad DTX minnows.
Oh,
and then
I've heard some awesome things about those.
They're bad to the bone, man. They dive deeper and troll straighter at the highest speeds of any other lip plug on the market, in my opinion.
Wow.
I mean, just absolutely incredible. You control one of those lip plugs at almost 18 knots.
Whoa.
Yeah. The Mad Maxes are rated to 22 knots. I wouldn't want to troll at 22 knots.
I can't even imagine if that thing comes out of the water.
It could hurt somebody.
I wouldn't even want to hang onto the rod for that thing.
Yeah.
I'd have to be working out like Mike does.
Yeah, for real. Yeah, that's some serious speed. But, hey, I mean, they work. The Wahoo love them, and we've caught tuna, kingfish, mahi, billfish, a variety of species on those big lip plugs. And that's typically what we go to. But skirted lures, too. I mean, one of my favorite skirted lures is that daisy chain where you've got a couple, what do you call it? I can't think of the word all of a sudden, in front of the fake ones.
Dusters, teasers.
Yeah,
whatever,
teasers. That's the word I was looking for. Ahead of that main lure in the back, because the back lure is always the one that gets hit. And I love those daisy chains if I'm going to troll a skirted plug, just because you have the option to raise more fish into that spread.
This may be before your time, but I doubt it. Now, you've been around this business so long and grew up in a family of fishermen. Do you remember greenies?
No, I don't.
People are always going like, what the hell is greenie?
We do have to take a break, but on the other side, we're going to talk more about trolling and hopefully answer your questions. Don't forget, you can call us at 1-800-969-9352. Real Animals Radio Show. We'll be right back. Greenies. What's a greenie?
It's soft plastic skirt, probably about 4 to 5 inches, and what we used to do, and it was just hollow, okay, and it had a hole in the nose. We would run a leader down through the nose, take a 1/4 to 1/2 ounce lead weight, shove it up inside, and run the monofilament through it, and then tie a hook on the back. And we would troll those, and it looked like a squid, kind of.
Yeah, you're talking about just like it's a hollow sleeve almost.
Yes.
Yeah, I've seen those.
Yes. But they used to call them greenies, and I honestly don't even remember what the name was, but God, everybody used them out there. They at the Reddington Pier, Big Pier 60 and all that, they were just cast them out off of there. Catch the
Casting skirts. I've heard it all now.
Yeah. Cast and troll.
That's cool.
Oh, wow. Dew point tomorrow. It looks like rain early, maybe.
I think those are dew points.
Yeah.
Humid for a cold front. I mean, this was a really weak cold front.
What direction is the wind coming out of?
North.
North.
Northerly flow through the weekend.
That is a little bit weird.
Yeah, I mean, I think the high gets down to 77. So, still pretty crazy.
Yeehaw.
Yeah, but next weekend we're supposed to get another front. It should be a little stronger. But I mean, now this is our 3rd cold front we've had in the area, and it hasn't done much.
But it's just a little drop in humidity.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, at least this cold front brought us a north wind.
Yeah. Next 8 days, it's not showing much any chance of rain.
Yeah.
But I had to run over to Central Marine yesterday. I had my boat over there, and the hatches are not as waterproof as they used to be. I mean, one of the reasons I bought that boat was because they were the driest hatches of any boat that I had seen. And, boat's 17 years old now, and it's, the weather stripping goes around. It has a tendency to shrink a little bit, which leaves a little bit of space. So, especially if they got the tongue jack thing is jacked up a little bit, when water runs to the back, I mean, although I know there's drains and that kind of thing, sometimes they go over the lip and into the hatch. So I'm sitting there with literally thousands of lures with hooks, and it can be a rusted mess. If it,
your hatches is where is where you store your lures?
Yeah, I've never used the live wells. I have 2 wells plumbed, one, and high-speed oxygen OT infusion system in it, but I had it made for resale more than anything else.
Yeah.
I had every option I could get put on that boat. So, I mean, today the boat sells for about $70,000.
Nice.
So, but I've had a lot of people go, "Hey, that's a nice old boat." What is it, like 3 years? No, 17. My old boat that I started out chartering in, it's still in the garage. And
Oh, really?
teak looks like brand new on it.
That's crazy.
Yeah, because I always oiled it and everything else. Amazon teak oil if you're gonna have teak.
Amazon teak oil.
Yeah.
Shout out.
This is one of the things that I always hated about Mel's show was he had so many commercials.
Yeah.
And it's like, when we can talk about fishing.
Yeah. Well, it just goes fast too. You're having a good conversation like just then. I didn't realize we were coming up on break. We went to break a little late.
Where is all that tells you? Is it
Nowhere.
just the time?
It's just the clock. Yeah, we go by the clock.
Okay.
So the next break will be 6:30.
Because the producers that I had over at 1040, I mean, they'd
Start playing
I'd
music.
hear it in my earphones,
Yeah.
it's like 45 seconds or something like that,
Yeah.
30 seconds, whatever, and then it's like, so I know how long I got to talk.
Yeah. They will prompt you if needed, but most of the time they don't.
Animals Radio Show, presented by Hubbard's Marina. Now your captains, Mike Anderson and Dylan Hubbard.
The Real Animals Radio Show, presented by Bartow Ford, News Radio 970. Captain Dylan Hubbard this morning.
And I'm Mike Anderson for the day.
And we've got a smaller Mike Anderson here, Captain Ray Markham.
Serious diet.
Well, a quick shout out to our friends at Affordable Roofing Systems. If you need a new roof or a roof repair, don't forget to check out our friends at Affordable Roofing Systems. They understand that your roof is a very large investment and protects most everything you own. Let Affordable Roofing Systems' 3 decades of experience and roofing knowledge guide you through this important process. Whether you need a shingle, metal, tile, or flat roof, Affordable Roofing Systems is your safest choice for repairs or replacements. Affordable Roofing Systems is defined by integrity, respect, and honesty, and has a personalized professional approach into doing business. Call Affordable Roofing Systems today at 888-397-ROOF for your free estimate, or visit their website at affordableroofingflorida.com. And with that, we also want to give a shout out. Capt Mike has got another Real Animals fishing conversation coming up at Furman Newport Richie over there at the corner of 19 and 54. And his guest for that upcoming Real Animals fishing conversation is going to be Captain Steve Benton. But they're still virtual, unfortunately, in today's world. They got to do it virtually, so that Real Animals fishing conversation will happen Tuesday night, October 26th, if you want to join Capt Mike to talk fishing on the Real Animals Facebook page. So mark your calendars. You don't want to miss out. It's always a good time, right?
I call in virtually every week.
I virtually
You might
will
miss
be
it
there.
sometimes because I'm virtually sleeping.
Speaking of calling in, we do have William from Crystal River on the line. How are you doing this morning, William?
Hey, Captains. Last week or so, you had a one lure show favorite.
Yeah.
You were just talking about casting with distance.
Mm-hmm.
Remember the Love Lure tandem
yeah.
rig?
Steve and Bill Love
You
were
could
good
take-
friends of mine, and I was one on their pro staff, so I know very well what it
You
is.
could take one of those apart and learn how it's made, then adapt it with different size lead heads, different color lead heads. You can go with your bait that you would put on it. You can put it with different color baits and then figure out what they're biting. Now,
Yeah.
I'm a pretty big guy. I used to sling a cardinal reel and a country mile, and then if you can try to feel if the trash fish. And I used to load it with shrimp too,
There you
but
go.
you can be amazed at how farther you can cast when you're a little bit more of a novice with a 3/4 lead heads on and
Yeah, that'll
Yeah,
definitely help you.
that's-
So you would
Yeah,
say
for
your
sure.
number one lure would be the Love Lure, huh?
Well, it's just what you can learn and adapt with it. You can take if you learn how to tie it, then you can tandemly tie any rig, going from bigger sizes all the way up or down, and then figure out your colors and figure out your sizes. Just thought I'd throw that out there. Tight lines, guys. Remember, the next time you hear these words, I hope you hear them and you're saying them. Fish on.
Thank you, William, for calling in. Always appreciate your calls, man.
Hey, William.
Definitely a good suggestion there. I mean, tandem rigging. Do you still do that?
I do, and in fact, I used to tie my own when I'd get the components from Bill and Steve and put them together. They used a 3/32 jig head, which was super light.
Yeah.
And I found out a number of different things. And you read most every book on how to rig soft plastics and that kind of thing, and it will tell you to rig everything straight and that kind of thing, because it'll produce line twist and do funny things and all that. And and I still look at it and hear it, but I'll tell you here, they made several different soft plastic style baits. They made a curly tail, they made a grub tail, and then they also made something called the Love Swimming Minnow. Love Swimming Minnow was the original mold that they had, was one of the Kakaho minnows out of Louisiana. And that particular bait was my absolute go-to bait. And I believe it's probably one of the reasons that Mark Nichols has a Cal Shad these days, because Mark and I became friends right after he started his company. And Mark came fish with me.
Yeah.
And I was just waxing him. And he's going like, "What are you using?" I showed him the bait. He didn't copy the bait or anything like that. His bait was a little smaller than the swimming minnow, but it's a similar shad style body. So it just really produced a lot of fish, because you could get in front of a lot of fish. But getting back to the tandem rigs, why don't we take a break and we'll talk about it?
Yeah, definitely want to talk more about the tandem rigs, and that's interesting, the history on that. And hopefully you guys can bring us some more topics and questions. Don't forget, you can call into the show, 1-800-969-9352. Real Animals, Bartow Ford radio show coming back.
Bass I have to deal with that we don't have to deal with is a lot of rock bottom.
Oh,
And
rock
because-
bottom is tough.
Yeah, because of that, things that are heavier jig heads, and if he's throwing a 3/4 ounce up there, he must be throwing in deep water, because you can't work a jig with a 3/4 ounce jig head up there. It just sinks too fast. And when I fish with William, he's going like, "You better use like an 1/8." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Well, it just sinks too fast and you're going to get hung on the bottom." Well, bottom line is I never got hung on the bottom, because I'm used to fishing that lure when I cast. My retrieve and everything else that I do is different than everybody else does. I notice one of the things that a lot of people do, I don't say it's wrong, but it's wrong. When they cast out and the lure goes up in the air and it comes down in an arc.
Yeah.
And obviously, the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line.
Yeah.
But if you're casting and, it's making an arc, you have probably another 10% for extra line out there. So if you don't close the bail until that bait hits the water, now you got to take up another 20 or 30 feet of line before you ever start moving the lure.
Yeah.
What I do is a lot of times I'll close the bail manually, or I'll feather the lure as it's coming down. And what it has a tendency to do, because you have forward momentum, is it straightens the line out. So when it lands, it's coming down and it's going like this. So you got direct connection with it, because you got a lot of times, if I'm casting to specific spots where every time I cast, I'm thinking, if I was a fish, where would I be?
Yeah.
And I cast to that spot, and I'm hitting that spot.
Yeah.
The reason why I've won like casting contests for the state a bunch of times. And that's what I try to do. And I expect a fish to hit every time I make a cast.
Yeah.
So I'm ready as soon as that bait hits the water, because I'm already going with my retrieve.
Yeah.
And so that's why.
By feathering the jig, you mean when you cast, you're putting pressure on the spool.
Just light pressure, and as that line spins around the spool, it's touching your finger.
Yeah.
And it's creating a little bit of drag. But it's at the very end of the cast that you start doing that. And I'll do that, and the very first thing I do, I don't even think about it anymore, is when lure lands, and I give it a quick pull, and it puts immediate tension on the spool, so you have zero loose line on the spool.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. Guys that are casting, you got that big loop like that, and it lands, then all of a sudden, when they start to turn the reel handle, they're turning the reel handle with loose line.
You get
and
wind
that's
knots.
why there's no such thing as a wind knot.
Yeah.
Wind does not create knots, except at the rod tip.
Yeah.
And that's just like fly fishing. If you understand fly fishing, you don't cast the weight of a fly, you cast the weight of the line. The line follows the tip, the pathway of the tip. However that tip moves, if that rod is flexing and it's rebounding, when it does that, the line will also do that. And when an angler casts directly into the wind, their rod flexes because it's casting. You load the rod, and then you don't look at it, but if you had a slow motion camera to watch it, the rod tip would go like this.
It's interesting.
More later.
No, we're not there yet.
We're not there. Okay.
Got to be soon though. That's interesting. So that you're talking that rebound is when the wind knot occurs.
What happens is this: if you cast a fly, you're going to cast, the line is going to come back and it straightens out and it goes forward. Once it starts going forward, it has a tendency to fold over itself and it forms a loop. And that's what is known as casting the loop. You have a tight loop where the line is close together, or you have a wide loop. You have a wide loop, particularly when you're fishing heavy flies, but that's not a good distance cast. You can't get good distance with a wide loop. You have to have a tight loop, so it cuts into the wind.
Yeah.
And so if you're casting, I don't care if it's braid or mono or whatever, but it particularly happens with braid because braid has zero memory, okay? And when it goes out and you're casting into the wind, your rod tip is recovering from that bend of the
Rebound.
rod from setting it, or from
Loading it.
And the rod tip goes like this once it goes out. When it does that, the line that comes off the tip of the rod is doing that. Remember I said the line follows the pathway of the tip of the rod? And so it does that. But what happens is it's throwing little loops into the wind, and it throws that loop back over the rod tip. So when you look, it's always going to be at least one half hitch. And it's always a half hitch. It's not a bunch of different kinds of knot, a clove hitch or whatever, but it's half hitches on the rod tip. And that's what causes it.
Interesting.
And so if you understand that, to avoid it, whenever you cast and the wind's coming directly at you, your rod tip has to be at least 90 degrees towards the wind. The wind will never blow it back over the rod tip if the rod tip is away from the wind. So,
Interesting. So
I
there's
lay
no such
awake
thing.
at night thinking of shit. Why does that happen?
All right, here we go.
I like to know the reasons why.
News Radio WFLA. This is the Bartow Ford Real Animals Radio Show, presented by Hubbard's Marina. Now your captains, Mike Anderson and Dylan Hubbard.
Bartow Ford Real Animals Radio Show, News Radio 970. Captain Dylan Hubbard here. We got Ray Markham in studio this morning, and we are talking fishing. Hopefully you guys have some questions for us too. You can call us and join us on air at 1-800-969-9352. That's it. You got it.
I've got it. I've had it for years.
There you go. Yeah, and hopefully
care
you
what
can
the
wake
doctors
up
give me,
early
I
and
can't
call
get
us
rid of it.
sometime.
You know, I figure I'm never going to learn anything if I'm talking.
That's true. My grandfather always said you have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason.
Wilson was a piece of work.
Yes.
I knew the man. I used to fish off the Mary Pier when I was a little kid. I used to get bait there.
Yes, he definitely had a few quips in his time, and that was always something that resonated with me. Just and especially on party boats, and that's the reason I love party boats fishing. Is you can just sit back, relax, and watch other people, and learn so much so quickly if you're willing to sit back and watch and listen.
Sure.
Yeah, that's what it's all boils down to. Speaking of listening, we've got the freshwater guru, Ron from Ron's Tackle Box. How are you doing this morning, Ron?
Good morning. Doing well. How you fellas doing?
Good morning, Rod. Doing great.
Great. Hey,
How's the
fishing
bite?
out here in Polk County has been pretty good this last week. We weather turned a little better for us again, and a lot of speckled perch, which are the crappies that the northern people call. But
We're crappy.
they're doing good. Some guys are getting limits, so it's been a good early season on them. Using minnows is your best bait right now as it gets
Missouri
colder.
minnows.
The different colored jigs are working well.
What about the bass? How's the bass bite been?
Bass fishing's been pretty decent. Nothing real big, up to about 7 pounds this last week, but most of them are 3 to 5.
Nothing real
Those are
big,
nice
7
fish.
pounders.
I don't know any bass fishing angler that would catch a 7-pound bass and not be happy with it. It's like, not too
Absolutely.
big.
But we're all going for that 16-pounder or better.
Oh, good
See,
Lord,
that's
yeah.
what we're all looking for.
You could always
They're
hope.
here. You know, a few weeks ago, I weighed a 14-pounder out of Lake
Oh,
Rochelle right down the
mother
road
pearl.
here.
Wow, that
What
is
was
big
that
bass.
caught on?
A shiner, that one was.
Wild shiners. Okay.
Yeah, the shiners are the big bait specialty, huh? If you had to choose one lure to catch yourself that 16-pound bass, what would
Well, I have a lure here in the store. I have thousands of lures, but just one bait. It's a Booyah royalty color lipless crankbait. It's amazing.
Is it a square bill?
I sell hundreds of them.
Lipless.
And they produce the fish.
Okay, real
If the
lipless.
fish aren't even biting, they're going to kill it anyhow.
be? Wow.
'Cause they hate it.
Booyah
you know,
royalty
Purple
color.
with it's a purple bait with a chartreuse belly on it. And it's amazing. I've been selling them about 8 years, and
You say it's a
can't hardly
lipless
get 'em.
crankbait. Is it something like a rattle trap?
yes, sir. Yeah,
Okay.
just like a rattle trap. But for some reason, the sound, the color, and the action of that one bait does the trick. They make a lot of other colors that work, but this one, 3 to 1,
Wow.
you'll do. It's amazing.
Well, that's interesting. Is the water moving out there with all this drought that we've been
Well,
having? Seemingly, it seems like
We had a lot of good running water. We had a lot of rain, which helped, but not this last week. I was hoping to get that rain they were forecasting yesterday and today, but it just seemed to bypass us here.
I got you.
But yeah, we get running water. It's really on then. That's for sure.
Well,
There's a lot of canals here. 554 lakes here in Polk County.
That's it.
what kind of wind do you get
lot
over
of
there?
lake.
I mean, has the wind been blowing much at all, or has it been pretty?
No.
Pretty, yeah.
Pretty calm.
I mean,
Like
I've
today,
never had
it's gonna
really
be-
good days on windless days. I mean, it's bluebird skies and that kind of thing, where the wind just kind of gets slack. I mean, you don't have any water movement per se. I like a little wind.
You will out here because there's a lot of brush and things like that. You can fish around, and that holds the fish real good. So
Gives them a place to hide out. How do you get a hold of Ron's Tackle Box if you want to come visit and learn more about that
Alrighty.
freshwater fishing?
I'm at 380 South Lakeshore Way, which is 1792 out in Lake Alfred. Phone number 863-956-4990.
I appreciate it, Ron. As always, freshwater
Thanks, guys.
guru. Thanks for the call this morning.
Thank you. Bye.
Well,
Already.
yeah, he is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to freshwater fishing.
Old guys are like that.
It's always wise to keep listening, as you stated prior to that phone call. Speaking of, let's keep picking your brain on this lure, and on that same trend. We were talking last week about the one lure that you would pick if you could only fish one lure. If you were going out, what would it be?
Me personally?
Yes,
Cow shad.
a cow shad,
It's either cow shad or Merrill or marsh minnow jr.
marsh minnow jr.
I keep wanting to say marshmallow, but not a marshmallow. Marsh minnow.
I don't think I've fished the marsh minnow. I'm always using the mirrodine. I love that lure.
It's a phenomenal lure. I mean, of hard baits, to me, it's probably the best hard bait entry into the market in the last 15 years or so.
Yeah, I love the Mirrodine.
Incredible. And it comes in a number of sizes and weights and, and right now.
Too many colors.
No, never have too many colors. You can't sell tackle boxes if you have a limited number.
That's true.
But yeah, the thing is that it's an in-your-face bait. When you've got a strike zone, the colder it gets, that strike zone shrinks more and more, gets smaller and smaller. Fish are not going to chase lures very far when it gets to the point where they don't want to expend a lot of energy to get their food. So that it is just in your face, stays in the strike zone. You can work it without moving it.
Yeah.
So.
And speaking of strike zone, that's always something that I think a lot of people can get tripped up on, is when you're presenting a bait to the fish, you have to be in that strike zone. You have to be presenting that bait naturally, and you have to find those areas, those ambush points where those fish are going to be hiding out and ready to ambush that passing bait. What do you look for when you set up on a flat?
It depends on what I'm targeting. And when I fish, I target whatever kind of fish I'm fishing for. It's going to be different if I'm fishing for flounder, and it's going to be different if I'm fishing for redfish or snook or trout.
Let's pick snook.
Okay, let's pick snook. Okay, snook are the junkyard dog of all the fish.
That's why I like them.
It's because they will attack baits even when they're not hungry. And specific lures, and if I had to choose one lure to do it with, it would be something like a MirrOlure top dog.
Oh, yeah.
MirrOlure top dog, head and zero spook. It's that walk the dog style, zigzagging bait that even when a fish, a snook is not hungry, I have watched them hit it multiple times, not to eat it, but to kill it or get it out of its strike zone. And, I've watched fish that will come up and they will actually slap at you. Sometimes wonder why guys fishing topwater lures, and specifically a walking bait like that, why they get fish foul hooked. It's not really hooked in the mouth sometimes. Sometimes it's in the side of the face, even in the side of the body. It's because they don't always come up and eat it with their mouth. They come up, and if you had a slow motion camera on it, you would see that fish turn and tail slap it. And so doing that, they get hooked.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. But
So when you're working a topwater lure, I mean, I've always been told and under the impression that's more of a low light condition lure. You using them during the day too?
I use it 24/7, and it doesn't really matter. But there are fish that are more susceptible to light than others, and for that reason, you probably will catch more fish under low light conditions, cloudy days, that kind of thing, and even evening. But there are also fish that are more of a nighttime predator than a daytime predator. So snook love feeding at night.
Yeah.
And
in that early morning through sunrise, dusk.
right. And then people look at it, it's like, okay, well, do you want moonlight? Do you want overcast skies? What do you want?
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of guys, even though you got good moving water during full moons, fish will feed like crazy at night.
Yeah.
But they don't get out on the water until dawn, and the fish are just all fat and happy. They've been eating all night.
Yeah.
And if you got a cloudy night on a full moon, it's going to be killer fishing in the morning.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because they're going to be hungry, excited.
Yep.
Well, we got a few more minutes here. What about flounder? We had someone ask on our Facebook live feed about flounder. If you had to choose one area to target big flounder, where would you go?
I would go to passes.
Me too.
You want moving water. You want changes. And changes can be
Changes in contour?
It can be changes in contour. It can be changes. They will situate themselves because they are kind of a camouflage nut, and they're like a chameleon. They will get on areas where you might have shell that meets rock, grass that meets sand, mud that meets sand, and different colors of bottom. And once they settle down there, in a matter of a few minutes, they will change their coloration to look like whatever it is they're on. But they typically love a change of depth. And when you have areas in passes, what happens a lot of times is that current will cut
constrict.
different. It will cut through that pass and form deeper areas and pockets. And a lot of times they will sit on the upside edge of a pothole facing the current. And when
So uptide side?
they want an uptide side because when bait comes over the top of that,
It gets closer to the bottom.
Water will swirl down if there's a pocket, and that's what happens. It forms like a small eddy, and the bait is forced down, and the fish are just sitting there, and all I got to do is just dart up and open their mouth. But we started talking about the Love's Lure tandem rig and whatnot, and I found out something really interesting when it comes back to talking about rigging it. If I want to fish for snook and I want to use that tandem rig, and I've got lots of doubles on the tandem rig curly tails, is that typically if you look at the book and on rigging baits and it tells you to rig it straight on the jig head, if you like over rig it, or in other words push more plastic on the shank of the hook than you should so that it's not straight, that plastic will follow the curvature of the hook. Okay, you don't want it exaggerated too much, but you want that plastic to go up a little bit. And what happens is this: every time you twitch your rod, the majority of the jigs that I'm using have the eye is offset from the center line of the shank of the hook. It might be in an up position so that you have a line attachment coming down. So what happens when you twitch the rod, that jig will turn over. And the actual weight of the hook, which rides up, will want to be down. So each time it turns over, the water will follow the curvature of the bait, so the bait will actually go to one side. And when you twitch the rod again, it will force the hook over the opposite way. And so now you have a jig that is going back and forth, zigzagging, just like you have on a top dog or a spook or something like that, but it's subsurface. And that drives a snook wild. But if you rig it correctly, according to the books, that lure's going to go straight.
Tackle Hacks, brought to you by Ray Markham. We're going to have more on the other side, guys. Don't forget you can call in and join the conversation at 1-800-969-9352. The Real Animals radio show brought to you by Bartow Ford on News Radio 970. We'll be right back.
Hey anglers, the best fishing charters in the Bay Area out of Hubbard's Marina on the boardwalk at Johns Pass. Hubbard's Marina has been catching fish since 1928. They offer everything from family-oriented half-day trips to the more advanced overnight trips. Nobody in the business does big group party fishing like Hubbard's Marina. They also have a great...
The number one lure in the world.
What number one lure in the world?
Whatever one they're selling.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and it's the Slam Shady was it. I mean, Slam Shady is just a color.
Yeah.
It's not anything else. And I know they probably sold a shitload of them because everybody wants the latest and the greatest no matter what it is. And that's why I had millions of lures.
So you're not tied to colors as much?
No.
You're more tied to style of lure.
Style, lure, and action, the bait, and the retrieve. I used to live a block down the street from your house, down Seminole down there. And I left all my shit there when I left. Yeah, that was a divorce.
Yeah, that'll happen. So what's your choice of lure for flounder? That's one thing we didn't...
Quarter-ounce jig head, cow shad.
Quarter-ounce jig head, cow shad. Okay. Seems like the answer is cow shad every time I ask you that question.
Well, it can be, but they make a really tough lure, and if I had to choose the toughest soft plastic lure that DOA makes, it would be the grub tail. Okay, the durometer reading on the plastic is much higher, so it's a stronger plastic. And it's a flat tail, a lot like the old Cody jig used to be, the chubby grub. And you can rig it on the hook so that the paddle is straight up and down like this, or you can rig it like this. If you rig it like this, when you twitch the lure, it's going to hop and do this. If you rig it so the tail's like this, whenever you twitch it, it's going to go back and forth.
So if you rig the tail straight on, it's going to go back and forth. If you rig it flat, it's going to hop.
Yes. Okay. And here's the thing. Flounder are laying flat on the bottom.
So you're going to want it to hop.
When they go to twitch their tail or move their tail, it's going to go like this, and they're going to go straight. They do not have good mobility left to right, side to side, unless they turn their body. So consequently, don't make it hard for them.
Yeah.
Make it, rig it so it's flat, and then I put my rod tip straight down, and I'll twitch with my rod down. That way it doesn't hop off the bottom very far. You want it to kind of drag a little bit, so create a little puff of mud or whatever that the bottom and structure is. And that is, I could target flounder at will and catch flounder anytime I wanted to. We fish the Johnny Keller tournament, usually fish it, and I've won it a few times, at least the flounder division, because that's all I'll target. I mean, you're competing against guys that are fishing shrimp and everything else in the world, chumming, and so I go for.
Now your captains, Mike Anderson and Dylan Hubbard.
Bartow Ford Real Animals Radio Show. We are talking fishing here on Saturday morning. We've got a short segment here, but we've got Johan from Tarpon Springs. What's going on, Johan? How are you this morning?
Well, I'm doing great. How are you?
I am doing well. Just another day in paradise. So what's up? What do you want to talk about?
Yeah, speaking of paradise, I'm an archaeologist, and I've done a lot of studying about fish hatcheries and about the red tide. And it turns out that fish hatcheries, you can't destroy them. It's a federal offense to destroy a fish hatchery. Now, up in Tarpon Springs, there's an underground river going from Lake Tarpon to Spring Bayou. And that's been gated up by a coffer dam and a gate at the bottom of that spring. Actually, at the top of the spring, you can't get through to the fish. The fish can't get from Lake Tarpon to Spring Bayou. And in ancient times, Poseidon was the first to build a fish hatchery. And I believe by finding all these ancient stone anchors along the west coast of Florida, the Tarpon Springs was that fish hatchery, and it was called the Garden of Hesperides. And in the Garden of Hesperides, there was a sacred tree, which I've determined to be the Brazilian pepper tree. So if the Brazilian pepper tree is ground up and thrown on the red tide, as it does on stagnant ponds, it'll clear up the red tide because the Brazilian pepper tree gets rid of bacteria, fungus, and virus.
So
well,
I appreciate
utilized for drinking as a tea with honey, but you don't drink the seeds because the seeds in the berries have arsenic in them, and that's why the birds die by eating the seeds when they're eating the berries.
Well, thank you very much this morning for that helpful information. Brazilian pepper. Did you know that was a secret to killing red tide?
Who'd have thunk?
Yeah. Arsenic,
I never
too.
saw it. I never saw it killing birds. I saw them like doing loops and whatnot afterwards, like they were drunk. But
yeah,
what the hey, an invasive species. Who'd have thunk?
A Brazilian pepper. How would it be the secret key if it's an invasive species?
I don't know. I guess you have to be an archaeologist.
Yeah.
But
I skipped that class in high school.
Interesting stuff about the Spring Bayou and all that, though, because, we have a lot of underground caves and caverns and things that are all interconnected to our water system underneath. And by golly, let's inject all the poop we can under into the water.
Oh, don't get started on deep well injection.
I know.
We don't have enough time for that.
Oh, you got that right. Jeez.
Yeah, but don't forget, again, I want to remind everybody, we've got the Real Animals Fishing Conversation coming up Tuesday, October 26th. That's going to be virtual only and going to be held at Furman, New Port Richey, the corner of 19 and State Road 54. That's 6:30 to 8 p.m. Captain Mike Anderson is going to be talking fishing with Captain Steve Benton. So always a great time for those Real Animals fishing conversations, and that'll be live on the Real Animals Facebook page. Mike does a good job with those, man, and
He does.
I've coined or used his coined term, the fishing conversation, in my show on
Actually,
Sunday
that
nights
was Mel's.
too. That was
That
Mel's?
was Captain Mel's. And
Okay.
Mel used to do that. He started the fishing conversation because, again, he liked to listen.
Yeah.
And Mel was a very good student of fishing.
I remember when I started speaking and doing fishing events and fishing shows, they were always called fishing seminars, and I don't like a seminar. I don't want to stand up there and
It's like
talk.
you got to preach.
Yeah, I don't want to stand up there and talk the whole time. I want to talk with you. I want to talk with you and start a conversation. So I've always adapted that as well. So I definitely appreciate that part of the idea and approach to fishing events. And I feel like you get more out of it when you have a conversation.
Captain Mel and I used to fish together a lot, and he always loved fishing down McGill Bay, Terrace area, and we had some really interesting conversations, and he probably had more jokes than anybody that I've ever had on the boat. Good guy to have around. But if you want to call in, 1-800-969-9352.
We've got almost a full board now. It's crazy. Yeah. So people are waking up here in the second hour of the show, but we've only got a few seconds here before we have to go to a break. On the other side, we'll definitely be getting to the callers. But if you want to call in and join the conversation, like Captain Ray said, 1-800-969-9352, or you can join us on the Real Animals Facebook stream live on Facebook. It's also streaming to the Hubbard's Marina Facebook page too. And
you're everywhere.
Yeah. We got a whole bunch of fancy stuff going on in here. I don't know how it works. I just set it up. I just plug it in. That's all I do.
It's odd. We don't drink during the morning show, but you drink in the night show. Is that what it has?
Yes. The live show on Sunday nights has a lot of booze involved.
Oh Lord.
That's why I'm not in charge of that show. All I have to do is show up and talk.
You don't have a sponsor for that by now.
I mean, if Jameson Irish Whiskey wants to sponsor me, that would make my life dream goals accomplished. But give us a shout, 1-800-969-9352. Real Animals Radio Show brought to you by Bartow Ford, News Radio 970.
Hang on, Cap Mike. Hang on, Cap Marie. We'll be right back.
Sit beneath this shady tree and chew on my bone. Sit and watch the cars roll by from the middle of...
There we go. That's Ray Williams from Fat Cat.
I shamed him into it.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he says, make sure you tell everybody that Dylan's going to be speaking at the Fat Cat Tavern Fishing Club meeting. Yeah. I said, that's your job. You got to call in.
Yeah, you got to call in and plug your thing. That's on my list of stuff to talk about for sure, though.
That's all right. We'll get it there. What are you going to talk about?
It's a fishing conversation.
You should talk about crappie fishing or something that freaks people out. What?
Something I know nothing about.
Exactly. I've crappie fished before. I like doing it.
Crappie fishing?
Yeah, hell yeah.
No, Mike Anderson and Big Ben Marshall, they're super into the crappie fishing.
But you know what's really funny is that I used to use, when I started guiding, I was guiding the 6-pound Andy tournament. Mm-hmm. I was on Andy's pro staff. Yeah. But I only used the tournament line because it was either exactly what the stated rating was or just a fraction under. And all these guys got on the boat and they're like big macho men and setting the hook and all that kind of crap. They usually would break off. I'm landing a 20-pound snook that's 40 inches long, you know, on 6-pound tournament with 20-pound mono leader, and they're freaking out like, why? You know, how come mine broke? I says, because you're horsing the fish.
Yeah.
Let the rod and the reel do its job. Let the drag go. Let the fish run, you know. Mm-hmm. And they just, I don't know.
You can't horse them.
The muscle.
That's how it is offshore, too. So often you're fighting so hard to get that grouper up off the bottom. You gotta relax.
Get away from the structure.
Yeah, but once you win the battle, once you get 10, 15 cranks on the fish, you gotta slow down. And I oftentimes will even lower the drag a little bit and go back to high speed and just let it chill and let the fish eat.
My issue is always the guy that you know, the drag was going out. He tightened the drag. Leave the hell alone.
Yeah. That's the problem with those lever drag 2-speed conventional reels offshore is it makes it too easy. And I've lost fish like that, getting overexcited.
Isn't the was it TDL or something like that? Shimano, isn't that a lever drag?
Yeah.
I've got one. I think I used it twice.
All the 2-speeds are lever drags. They don't make a 2-speed conventional reel with a star drag yet. But I've been begging at every ICAST event I go to.
Which also just hit me. Did they replace Dan yet?
No. Daiwa Dan? Yeah.
I was going to order a bunch of stuff at the beginning of the year, and he says we won't be able to get it.
Daiwa Dan told me before he retired, he had $8.3 million of orders on back order.
Yeah, when he told me that too. And then when I talked to him, I don't know, at ICAST, and he said, we probably won't be getting any shipments till after the first of the year. And then he gave me the 22 catalog and price thing, and so I'm going, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
I might as well buy shit off of Salt Strong. Even they don't have the 2500. I want to get I wanted to get one of the BG combos for my brother for his birthday.
Yeah.
And I can go to
If we have it at the shop, I can unload it because we don't move a lot of tackle, and we have when we buy stuff, we buy in bulk. So if I have it at my shop, I can move it to you.
I'm looking at the catalog price, and my price was like $78 or something like that, and it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Compared to for the reel it's $120, and then for the rod, but the only thing I could sit and think of is
the guide price is nice that Daiwa does.
Well, that's exactly.
It's even sometimes below wholesale if you only
it's
order
usually
the
around
minimum.
40-45% off.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted to get stuff, and now I'm like, now what?
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough out. I mean, try owning a tackle shop. You can't get anything.
I know.
It's nuts.
And people don't understand. I mean, Mark Nichols, he's doubled his force, number of people working there. He's added more machinery, and he's still only 6 months behind.
Wow.
They just can't make shit fast enough.
Yeah, and they can't get the material to make it.
Well, it's part of that. That's part of the problem. And getting hooks and jigs.
Yeah.
I mean, he used to use strictly Eagle Claw hooks. We had a hell of a deal with Eagle Claw. And then, ever since then, it's been VMCs, Eagle Claw, occasionally Mustad, but, whatever they can get that'll fit in the mold.
Yeah.
And, in fact, he's in the process of altering some molds so that he can accommodate multiple hooks.
Wow.
And and people are asking him, and I asked him too, and I said, this is a really stupid question. I said, but are you working on anything new? He says, you're right. And I said, what? That is a stupid question. He says, I can't keep up with what I got.
Yeah.
I said, yeah, I understand.
Yeah, and the same thing, I heard Mike Anderson talking about that at ICAST. He told them at ICAST, there's no reason for me to bring a new product to market because I can't get the materials.
Can't produce it.
Yeah.
Can't supply. And that's a case
I can't get employees. Whether it's supply chain, get materials, or raw materials, or finished product, or just getting someone to work.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And it's all the freaking Democrats' fault.
I apologize, Facebook.
Oh, excuse me. We're on Facebook? Oh, geez. Oh, I forgot about that. Details.
Politics.
Well, we will pay you to sit on your butt.
Yeah, it definitely didn't help.
Yeah, I know people, they are not really friends of mine, but I know people who took advantage of every single thing they could do. I think they intentionally caught COVID so they could sit at home, and then not only that, then you collect more money because you have COVID.
Yeah.
Oh, now I just opened it up for all those Democrats that are sitting there watching this. I'm not getting my COVID money. Gummit.
We're back.
Yeah, there we go. It's not there.
iHeartMedia Incorporated.
Welcome to the Bartow Ford Real Animals Radio Show, your weekly voyage into Florida fishing. Presented by Hubbard's Marina, hosted by Captain Mike Anderson and Captain Dylan Hubbard.
Well, the boss is gone this week. It's just Captain Dylan Hubbard here on the Real Animals Bartow Ford Fishing Show on News Radio.
The mice will play.
Yeah, exactly. On News Radio 970. And unattended this morning with Captain Ray Markham. We do have a full board, so I appreciate everybody holding on. We've got Captain Mike in Big Pine Key, Ray Williams, Captain Ray Williams now, and Stephen Largo. But first.
And Jim Vogel.
Yes, well, but first, without further ado, the man, the myth, the legend, Jim Vogel. How are you doing this morning, man?
Captain Dylan, good. Nice show this morning, buddy. Light and lively. Love it.
Hey,
Love
fake it till you make it, buddy.
I don't know about light. Take a look at us. Take a good look at us. Actually, the
One of
camera
us is
adds
light.
like 50 pounds.
I hear you. Yeah, listen, we've talked before about this a little bit, but recently 2 men up in Rhode Island were fined $10,000, which personally I think is a little on the light side.
And I'm never going to Rhode
for
Island.
launching 3 flares after dark at a friend's wedding.
Oh.
They thought it would be cool and smart.
Yeah.
And then they were even really smart. They filmed themselves for Facebook or something.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to do something illegal, you might as well film it and put it on Facebook.
I think it's very helpful, frankly. I think it's very helpful. Anyway, the bad side is it launched a search with 2 choppers and a couple of vessels, which, ended up costing us taxpayers over $100,000.
Whoa.
And worse than the cost was the fact that these assets were out there looking for something that wasn't there.
Yeah, that's the worst.
And, could have been needed. And somebody could have died because of this stupidity. So we just want to remind everybody that this is not a kid game. You don't give maydays or false distress signals over the radio and or shoot off flares, even on New Year's Eve.
Right.
Amen
4th
to
of
that.
July, et cetera, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a pretty solid tip there this morning, Jim.
But I do have dozens of expired flares on my boat. Not that those are the ones that they check when they come in. I get on my boat, and I probably got 50 flares because you do this for a while. You collect stuff that goes out of date, and they're like, "Well, this is expired." Well, check the other 50.
Yeah. I mean,
sure.
They
Show
might
them
be
the good
expired,
ones.
but they still work.
But they will still work. It's like a shotgun shell. I've got shotgun shells that are
Exactly.
probably 40 years old and they still fire.
And if you get in trouble, man, you're going to want all of them you can have,
Yeah.
You want to have your own 4th of July show if you're in trouble and you need assets and you need help.
Amen.
So, we recommend keeping them. Just be careful and probably put them in plastic baggies or something so that they don't leak. If it looks like they're starting to leak, then you want to get rid of them.
They don't make baggies anymore, Jim.
They don't?
No. That Mobile Chemical Company made those, and they discontinued because all of the Ziploc type bags, zipper bags, kind of took over. They seal better and all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I'm so confused.
How about Ziploc
This is before
type
my
bags?
time.
Oh, no. Here we go.
Dylan's going, what's a baggie? And he's thinking, was that 2 fingers or what? No. Oh, Lord.
You guys are bad.
Thank you, Jim.
All right, listen, guys. Thanks a lot for the time. Appreciate the show. Good show.
Awesome.
There, Captain Dylan.
I appreciate it, Jim.
You guys take care.
Take care, Jim.
Coast Guard Auxiliary in St. Pete. Jim Vogel, be safe out there.
Yes, sir. Always appreciate our safe boating tip. We got time. We're going to go to Captain Mike from Big Pine Key. How are you doing this morning, Mike?
Hey, Dylan. Good morning, Captain Ray. How you all doing today?
Good morning.
Just another day.
Awesome.
Good morning. Standing here on the dock of the beautiful Big Pine Key area.
I love Big
Waiting
Pine
on
Key.
my
Give me some pizza from that no-name pub.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah.
Well, let me tell you, Ray, my home is in Doctor's Arms. So if you know Big Pine Key and you know No Name Pub, I can walk
Let me ask
to
you a
No
question.
Name Pub and I can crawl home.
I just want to point out, for the record, we got almost halfway through the show and no one brought up food, and the person who did bring up food was
It's not
Ray,
my fault.
not me.
It was
so
it was your
throwing
stomach
that on the
growling
record.
that gave it away.
My fault. Those pizzas, Mike Anderson referred to them in a podcast on the dark Tales from the Dark Side is survival discs. Well, they make the best survival disc in the Keys right there. But anyway,
right.
the fishing has been fantastic. The wahoo are showing up. Water temperatures have dipped a couple degrees on both sides of the Gulf and
what
the
is your
Atlantic
temperature down
here.
there?
We're waiting on that first really good, what we call Keys cool front. It'll bring those sailfish in into the Gulf Stream. It'll bring those bigger wahoo in. The bottom fishing, and Dylan's always interested in that.
Mm-hmm.
Bottom fishing's been fantastic from all the groupers, all the snappers. Deep drop trips all over the Keys have been doing real well, especially in the lower Keys, where I pretty much fish from Big Pine down to Key West, and that's in the Marquesas. So it's a great time to come down to the Keys and go fishing. Remember, folks, it's that time of year when prices for hotels and everything do go up. So be prepared when you get on the internet to do a little hunting for your good deals.
Amen to that. Let us know, how do you get a hold of Cap Mike if you're ready to book a trip?
You come down and fish on the brand new 35 Contender ST. To fish with Captain Mike is 813-434-8086. It's CaptainMichael47gmail.com. You can always reach out to Mike Anderson at Real Animals Fishing, 1-866-GAME-FISH, and which actually somebody did here last week, and I'm bringing he and his wife down, and they're going to have a good old time fishing with me. So, you guys want to come down and get your fish on down here in the Keys, come on down, and if I'm booked, I can point you in many directions. One thing we don't lack is plenty of inshore and offshore fishing captains down here.
Yes,
cool.
sir.
Yeah.
Thanks for the
just
call,
them
Mike.
in PR and have them hook me up.
Okay, guys, have a great day.
You
Dylan,
too, man.
I've even coined your phrase a time or two down here. So coining phrases from other guys, we all do it.
Amen to that. Well, appreciate you calling in this morning. Next on the board here, we've got Captain Ray Williams from Fat Cat Fishing Club. How are you doing this morning, Captain?
Good morning, captains. I'm doing fine. How are you guys?
It's another day in paradise, man. It's a beautiful morning.
I'm
Start
doing
to a
great.
beautiful
I
week.
passed the piss in the cup thing this week. So.
There you go. Random drug tests. Always
Random,
fun.
they're always after me.
How about you? I know you just passed one because you just got your license.
I don't know how he did that.
Yeah.
To really.
Yeah, will wonders never cease, huh?
Yeah, for sure.
I'm looking forward to our upcoming Fat Cat Fishing Club meeting. We're going to be doing a fishing conversation over there on October 13th, right?
Yes, it's coming Wednesday.
That's
next Wednesday, yeah.
Oh, it's
Isn't
this
it?
week.
It's this week?
It is.
Wait a
Today
minute.
is
no,
the
wait a minute.
9th.
Today's Saturday, so tomorrow's next week. It is next week.
No, that's this week. That's how that works.
No, it isn't.
Yes.
Well, whatever. This coming Wednesday.
It's the 13th.
Thank you for keeping us on track, Ray. I appreciate
All
that. But the meeting starts at 6, right?
Well, it starts at 7, but you want to get there early so you get a good seat, get some of that good Fat Cat food going on before the meeting starts.
Oh, okay.
Beer is food.
Yeah, there is food, and they have
beer
good
is food.
Beer is food.
Yes, beer is food.
It has calories in it. Beer also has water in it. So really, it's all you need in life.
Plenty of both there going on.
Yeah.
Well, any other information you have to talk about this morning? How about a fishing report? You've been out on the water?
Oh, a little bit. Everything seems to be biting this time of year, so also really looking forward to that kingfish run kicking into gear here.
Yeah, they started slowly, and then that kind of resurgence of red tide scared them off the beaches a little bit, but hoping they come right on back here. We were talking about that on break. If you were tuned into the Facebook Live, you probably caught it. But we were talking about how we've had a couple cold fronts, but they haven't really cooled anything off, huh? Hopefully that'll
we
come.
need one of those bad.
Yeah, cool. Little cooler water. That temperature's still a little high for those kingfish, and hopefully they'll be back, man. Because I always love those beach kingfish trips. Is that what you're talking about? Trolling the beaches?
Yeah, that's fun right off the beach and not too far out.
Yes, sir. Amen to that. Well, can you give any other information out about the Fat Cat meeting coming up?
Let's tell people where it actually is.
There you go.
You know,
what a novel idea.
It's in Largo. It's pretty much in the parking lot of the Publix parking lot in the corner of Belcher and East Bay. So
I live in Seminole.
There's a Publix, and it's right back there in the corner.
Yeah, I live in Seminole, and I'm still get lost over there. Yeah, growing up, it was like Park Boulevard might as well have been a wall.
For you can take Missouri Seminole Boulevard straight up north until you hit East Bay, hang a right.
Right.
Yeah, and then you'll get there.
Yeah, they make this thing called iPhones now.
Yeah,
Right behind the Burger King.
Behind Burger King.
Now we're talking.
Yeah.
I can find that.
There you go. You got to talk about some food, right?
Yes, sir. Well, thank you for calling in this morning, Ray. I appreciate the reminder about our Fat Cat Fishing Club meeting.
How do they get a hold of you if they want to fish with you, Captain?
Well, you can do it on Team Stingray Fishing Adventures on Facebook, or you can call me at 727-515-4700.
I appreciate it. Thanks for calling in this morning, Captain Ray. Brand new captain's license, but he's been fishing for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And he's the president of the Fat Cat Fishing Club still, right?
He is, as far as I know. I mean, self-proclaimed, but...
There was no election, huh? Wouldn't that make him a dictator?
It just kind of it was a spawn off of like Hurricane Pass Anglers Club that doesn't exist anymore, and it's it just kind of morphed.
All right. It morphed into Fat Cat Fishing Club. And that they always have a good time over there. I've spoke there a few times. It's always a good event. Speaking of, again, don't forget October 26th, Tuesday, we've got the Real Animals Fishing Conversation going on at Furman, Newport Richey. Captain Steve Benton is Captain Mike's guest. And hopefully you can join us for that virtual event live on the Facebook of Real Animals. And we had one more caller, Steve from Largo, who wanted to talk Goliath grouper, but unfortunately we lost him because the board got filled up and probably had to go do something. Hopefully he's getting on the water. But if you want to call us, give us a shout, 1-800-969-9352. The Bartow Ford Real Animals Radio Show will be back.
Snook trout and redfish north of State Route 64, Manatee Avenue.
Well, all the snook, redfish, trout, the whole closure, I thought.
Take a look.
Oh, really? It's just north of 64?
Yeah.
So
the south stuff way down, I'm almost positive.
I thought it was the whole area.
I don't think so. I mean, the guys way south, they're real adamant.
So south of 64 to the south end of the closure is still closed?
Yeah, I do believe so.
All I saw was Tampa Bay is reopening it, but yeah,
well,
maybe you're right.
that's the way most people are reading it too.
Yeah. Well, that'll be good to delineate for sure.
The Coast Guard thing that's on here, the app is.
Your guy keeps calling.
What guy?
Your archaeology guy.
Oh dear.
About the red tide and
the Brazilian peppers.
25 years experience in archaeology. I'm like, listen.
Hey, listen. I have an anthropology degree, and I'm telling you, the guy's a whack job.
I said you be called. This is the third time he called today.
Mm-hmm.
He said, this is their show. They can do what they want, and if they don't want to talk to you, they don't want to talk to you. If you want to get a hold of them and it's a dire situation, find their email, find their phone number, find their whatever.
He needs to be calling on that show that's like at 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. The George Norrie.
Well, all I know is once you started saying
like
Poseidon fish hatcheries, I was like, all right, we got to go.
Yeah, he was just talking about it was something from the gods and something. I'm just like, no.
Here we go.
Thank you for being my bouncer.
Well, that's my job. Is that just so you know, people know where to find the radio station. If there's a wacko sitting outside, we could always take you into the back area.
Well, I've got a couple firearms in my backpack. We're good.
Well,
I left mine at home.
I'll walk you to your car, Rob.
I'm a radio employee. I say don't use them.
I didn't think we were allowed to bring them in the studio, so I just left mine.
I'd rather be judged by 6 than carried by 12, or no, judged by 12, carried by 6. That's the saying goes.
Something like that.
I love how they have a sign on the front of banks. Oh, you can't bring a firearm in here, but don't forget to wear your mask. So I'm supposed to wear a mask, but I can't bring my firearm
They
in.
also say that because of COVID, they want to stop cash transactions. It's got to be credit.
Bullshit.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and right.
That's nuts.
Please use credit or debit cards because, yeah, more BS. Control, that's all they want.
Ray does not hold back, folks.
Oh, that's right. We're on that Facebook thing. First book.
Oh, man. Yeah, when he started talking about Roman gods and fish hatcheries, I thought we were going to have a good conversation about fish hatcheries.
It's, yeah.
Is he calling back? Rob's on the phone again.
Cool.
No, Rob's entering a name, so it must be someone legit.
I thought it was going to be kind of a cool conversation about underground springs and how they're interconnected through all the caverns underground and all that, and then it got into like invasive species and killing birds and like.
That was
whoa.
That was wild.
Okay, where is my FWC? I know I had it on here.
Well, we'll just focus on Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
Because I know it's opening in Tampa Bay, October 12th. With the same topic.
Live grouper tags and whatever.
Yeah, they're talking about how.
Yeah, because I'm sure that's what that guy was wanting to call about.
Is that Frank from Clearwater?
Frana? Is that a female? Yeah. I know.
That was the first time I've ever had to do that.
You didn't have to. We could have just.
Thanks for the call. Quick.
It's a diplomatic way of saying. That was not my out loud mouth saying.
There
we go. We did that. Sort of.
Bartow Ford Real Animals Radio Show on News Radio 970. Capt. Dylan Hubbard in studio this morning with Ray Markham. And we're talking fishing, and you can join the conversation at 1-800-969-9352. We got a short segment here, but we've got Frana from Clearwater on the phone this morning wanting to talk about snook. How are you this morning?
I am just great. Listening to y'all, I want to thank you for the kind of show you put on. I feel like my daddy is still here. He hasn't been here for quite a while.
I appreciate that.
But listening to the fisherman, and he used to do a fishing show here in Clearwater years ago, Captain
awesome.
Frank.
What radio station was he broadcasting?
WTAN when it was a major station.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
And he went to all the marinas and did fishing, broadcasting things at the marinas, and went around and did this and that. And he did the bomber games, and he did all the fishing forecasts. Mm-hmm. He was just a kind of a all-around guy at WTAN at the time.
Oh, that's awesome.
But he loves to fish, and I miss him so much. And listening to y'all, I feel like I'm in with a group of you, including him, maybe.
That's cool. Well, we appreciate the kind words for sure.
And thank you for listening.
I called because y'all have been talking about snook left and right, and I have never in my lifetime tasted snook.
Oh,
he brought home everything that he could think of, but for some reason, a snook never crossed our door as far as I know.
Yeah.
It's really good. Yeah, and that's why one of the reasons it's protected too, because I'm telling you, it is one of my favorite fish to eat. But be honest with you, I haven't eaten one since they raised the minimum size from 26 to 28 inches because it was more fish than I could eat before I had to freeze it. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, I don't particularly like frozen fish. So
fish snob.
Oh dear Lord, well, I'd split one with one of you. I'd pay for the whole thing and split it with you. My problem is I have no transportation, and so if I am going to locate a snook, I have to take a cab to one place after another, hoping that maybe Ward's or one place or another has it, and spending
they
God
don't sell
knows
it
how
because
much for
it's-
the
yeah.
cabs back and forth. So I don't get fresh fish very much.
Yeah, hopefully you won't
But
find
I keep
snook
hearing
in
snook, and I'm just about to go crazy wondering what they taste like.
Well, you would have to book a trip because they don't sell snook.
There you go.
Yeah, you'd have to book a trip and get out fishing with a guide, and a guide could put you on them because, unfortunately, snook are one of those species where there is no commercial fishery for them. So you wouldn't be able to taste them unless you
so
went
I
out and caught
couldn't
them.
even go to Ward Seafood and buy snook.
Well, no. They're a game
Darn.
fish, and considered a game fish. So both redfish and snook, and you can't really sell them if they're caught here in the state of Florida.
Yep.
I understand that there are licenses from other states that restaurants may buy them from that are legal.
Oh.
But
I tell you
not here.
what, redfish was the first fish I ever caught after we moved here.
Mm-hmm.
I was about 8 or 9 years old when I caught a 6-pound red and got hooked.
Nice.
There you go. The
Nice.
first one
Yeah,
almost
yeah.
gets you set up.
It's about
Yeah,
a
that was
25
fun.
inch, 24, 25.
But anyway, well, so if I can't get it, I can't get it. I just wanted you all to know how much fun it is to listen to you. Because I'm here and there, if I had the wherewithal to get out and go fishing, you give good tips.
Well,
Man, the
there's
tips
a
on the
fella,
lures this morning.
Frana, there's
It's exciting.
There's a fella up a little bit north of you, up in Palm Harbor, fishes out of the Ozona Fish Camp. Jim Huddleston. Jimmy Huddleston's an excellent guide, really good with ladies and children, and he would be more than happy to put you on the boat and show you how to catch them, and maybe have you take one home after they reopen.
October
on the
12th. Yes, ma'am.
Next week.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Yes, ma'am.
thank you for the call this morning, Fran. I really appreciate you calling in and tuning in and the kind words. But we are up against a break again. So, yeah, it happens fast, right? But luckily, we still got a little bit of time to wrap that point up. October 12th, snook, redfish, and trout are reopening in Tampa Bay. So you want to call and chat about it? 1-800-969-9352. And Captain Ray will be sharing his thoughts when we get back. Look at his face on the Facebook stream. Captain Dylan Hubbard, we'll be back.
I got a heavy load behind this big wheel, nowhere to go.
We're going to be sharing Captain Ray Markham's thoughts. What'd you say? Yeah, I was just wrapping up Fran's call. I was still going to chat a little bit,
So we got
but it's all good.
Too much exit bumper music.
Yeah, well, I was going to keep talking, but he brought the music up, but it's all good. There was a miscommunication.
You can only play music for a certain length of time before they got to play royalties, so
yeah,
gotta mix
I'm all
it up.
tangled up over here. When we came back from break, I almost fell. I was trying to get my chair set up. Ran over my cord. I guess I can unplug.
How's your dad doing?
He's doing well.
That's good.
Yeah, he is staying busy with other things up at the farm and stuff.
Yeah, what a cool place that is up there.
Oh, yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it is. That was a hell of a blowout you guys had up there.
Yeah.
And did you drink that whole bottle of
I don't remember.
James that I gave? Yeah, I know you can all remember. I remember you telling me, oh my God, what a headache.
Yeah.
We had.
Hey, guys, we'll be right back.
Bartow Ford Real Animals Radio Show, presented by Hubbard's Marina. Now your captains, Mike Anderson and Dylan Hubbard.
Virtually Mike. I'm virtual Mike today.
Well, I'm Captain Dylan Hubbard, and this is the Bartow Ford Real Animals Radio Show on News Radio WFLA. And we don't have any callers on the board, but if you want to join us, you can join us at 1-800-969-9352 to ask your questions live on the radio.
Hurry, we probably have another commercial coming up in a few minutes. So
it's coming soon, but until that time, we want to talk about this Goliath grouper.
Pays the bills.
Yeah, the Goliath grouper thing, man. A lot of people talking about how Goliath grouper is going to be open for the first time in 30 years. A lot of headlines are reading Florida's opened Goliath grouper or a small limited season. They just okayed a proposed draft. That's all that happened. They haven't finalized anything yet. That doesn't happen until May. The next commission meeting in May is when they finalize that proposed draft on Goliath grouper. And there's still a lot of things to work out. Plus, what a lot of people don't realize is once you get the very limited, very expensive, they're talking $500 per tag.
Wow.
It's a very strict small slot. I think they were proposing, I believe, I don't want to say for sure because I don't know, but it was around mid-20s to around upper 30s on the slot level. I didn't write it down, unfortunately, but it was a very small fish. And I think most people, when they envision keeping a Goliath grouper with that tag, you're envisioning going out and catching one of those 2, 3, 4, 500-pound fish, and that's not what they're proposing.
My question is, will they be allowing spear fishers to harvest one of these fish? And if they're doing it in a tag manner, and if they're saying they're going to restrict it to certain sizes, I mean, do you want the guy going down there with a spear gun, maybe a power head or something, and picking out whatever size?
It's hook and line only.
It is hook and line only.
Yes,
okay, well, that's interesting.
Yeah, that's one thing that I saw.
I think they could wipe them out real quick otherwise.
Yeah, and I don't think you could swim and find one underwater with a power head because the small slot limit, I mean, those fish are going to be more in the bay, almost on the grass flats, mangrove shorelines.
They must be really talking about the juveniles then.
Yeah, like I said, I believe the upper end of the slot was like mid-30s. So
wow.
Once a
little
Goliath grouper is mid-30s, he's just starting to make it near shore. It's not like you're going to be finding those on the near shore wrecks. I think it'd be hard to find one. But we've got Glenn from Brandon on hold here talking about the Brazilian pepper tree again. I think this is becoming a trend. What's going on, Glenn? How are you?
Good morning, Dylan. Hey, listen, the archaeologists had called in just before your 7 o'clock hour.
Yeah.
Talking about the Brazilian peppers, how it would take care of the red tide.
Yes, sir.
You ought to try to find out if he would call back and give him his name and everything else and get with him to find out exactly how it's, maybe they can do some experiments with it and get rid of the red tide.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely open to that. My big thing on the Brazilian pepper tree, though, is it's an invasive tree that they're trying to get rid of because it's harmful to the ecosystem. So I don't see how an invasive, harmful tree would be the cure to another harmful thing. But it's worth looking into, and I'm sure that FWC and FWRI has tried virtually everything, but it's definitely something that I'm not discounting. And
Maybe you could get with you and give you his information and everything else that he has on.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we will definitely, Captain Rob behind the glass is definitely on top of taking those phone calls, and we will make sure to do our best to get that information.
Okay, have a great day then.
Thank you very much, Glenn. Appreciate the phone call.
Glenn.
So,
interesting. Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, stranger things have happened.
I don't discount anything. You never know what could happen.
Hey, buddy. Hey, we got Donald there. Come on, Donald.
Donald from Town and Country. Let's talk about fishing.
Well, it's not sort of kind of fishing.
It's sort of kind.
When I was younger and I lived over at Patrick, we used to go sit under the bridges and hang a lantern out at nighttime and hand dip shrimp. Do people still do that?
Yes, sir.
They do.
Yep.
Huh. What about Tampa Bay? Is it any good for that?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
You know, one of the best places in Tampa Bay that I found would be around Bunce's Pass.
Yep.
You've got Fort DeSoto on the south side, and you've got Shell Key on the north side, and grass flats all around Arrowhead and everywhere in that vicinity. Full moon in June is typically the best time to do it, and do it on the last of that outgoing tide.
Yeah. That's
I
great.
think a full moon had an effect on that too, didn't it?
Yes, sir.
Well, you got the strongest tides going around the full moon afternoon outgoing tide. And those shrimp can't swim against current, and technically they're heading out to spawn anyway, so they're suspended in the water, and that current is just whipping them right through that pass. And the pass being one of the constricted areas, the water flow is a lot faster than it is in surrounding areas. So it's going to be real easy. You just sit there with your head lantern or some other kind of lantern and just dip them up.
I thought the new moon works real well for it too.
It does, but the full moon has a stronger tide.
Yeah, and
that's stronger.
Okay. Another question. I used to do a lot of hand line crabbing where you tie a piece of chicken and throw it on. Is that still pretty good in Tampa Bay and around the rivers and stuff?
My crew was doing that off the dock 2 days ago for blue crabs.
You know what's funny? And we talk about all the negatives with red tide and that kind of thing, but typically crabs, shrimp, crustaceans have a big boom after a serious red tide because there's so many dead fish that end up either on the bottom to start, and you got the crustaceans that are feeding off of them, and now you're going to probably have a huge influx of crabs and shrimp. So, it's not always a negative, but
they always flourish. The best stone crab seasons are typically following.
Yeah, but that red tide dead fish, wouldn't that affect the eating of the crabs? Maybe.
Nah.
I mean,
Nope.
Humans eating crabs, wouldn't that?
No, sir.
No.
There's only a few different species. It's mostly shellfish that get affected. So you wouldn't want to eat clams, oysters, that kind of things from areas of red tide. But crustaceans, no, they can filter it out, and they actually flourish. And that was one of the questions I got a lot at Hubbard's Marina during that peak of red tide, is we didn't have live pinfish for our trips because obviously you can't catch them, can't keep them alive, but we had shrimp. And everybody's like, why do you have shrimp if you can't get pinfish? Well, shrimp actually flourish. They actually do better. And it was one of those summers where we didn't struggle as much to get those shrimp because those crustaceans, like Captain Ray said, do well.
Wow, very interesting. Well, thank you, guys. That was very interesting.
Hey, thanks for the call.
Thanks, Tom.
Appreciate the
it,
information and the good memories. I remember sitting on my little Carolina skiff. My favorite area was Blinds Pass or John's Pass. John's Pass is a little bit more difficult just because the area is so large. The shrimp don't get as concentrated. But Blinds Pass, real good area to do that shrimping too.
Speaking of which, John's Pass, where you have Hubbard's Marina, the current is out of control.
Getting it.
Well, it's because it's filling up with sand. And something really honestly needs to be done about that. Dredge that out or do whatever they got to do for safety reasons. The current is getting to the point where, boats going through there have a difficult time navigating.
Yeah.
And, it's supposed to be slow speed and all that kind of good stuff. But when you got a current ripping through there, 3 or 4 knots at least, it's tough.
Yeah, that current, as that sand builds up, it constricts water flow more and more and more, which makes that current rip even faster through John's Pass. So definitely have seen that over the course of the last 20 years. And there was a $35,000 study done, and they told us we need to dredge. Revolutionary waste of time and taxpayer dollars and private business dollars. We had to spend $10,000 to get that study done for them to tell us what we've been saying for 30 years. And get this, that $35,000 study, the results were, you need to dredge. They estimated, it gets worse. They estimated that the dredge would solve the problem for 15 years.
Yeah.
So it took us over 30 years to get to the point where the county and other organizations would work with us to do a study or do anything. And the study result was, this dredge will solve the problem for 15 years. So
was the Army Corps of Engineers involved in that at all?
The Army Corps of Engineers said, and I quote, Johns Pass is not important enough to qualify for dredging. And even if the pass was not functioning well, it would never take precedence over other more important areas like Clearwater Pass. She went on to say other things like Tampa Bay
how many
and stuff.
millions of residents we have of Pinellas County that are trying to get in from a thunderstorm out on the Gulf.
Yeah, it's the last vascular bridge access to Bogosiega Bay, and it's home port to 76.8% of the red grouper landed in the Gulf of Mexico. 76% of the red grouper landed in the Gulf of Mexico go through that vascular bridge in Johns Pass. That is huge. That is nearly 80% of the red grouper in the Gulf of Mexico go through Johns Pass, and the commercial boats are being restricted because they literally, I mean, we ran aground in the channel with our party boat and caused $20,000 of damage in the channel. So that's how bad it's getting over at Johns Pass. If you got a big boat, might want to avoid it or come through at a high tide because it is sketchy.
Yeah. Well, part of the problem is every time they want to dredge, they dredge east and west.
Mm-hmm.
And Mother Nature wants to go southwest and northeast.
Mm-hmm.
And so consequently, 15 years is how long it takes for Mother Nature to fix whatever we broke.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, it's definitely a very frustrating topic.
Not
Thanks for bringing
rocket
that one up.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that. What about snook, redfish, and trout? I mean, October 12th, that opening is coming up, and definitely been seeing those snook start to kind of move into their staging areas to kind of more set up for that fall and winter time pattern. Are you seeing that already?
Yes, but I mean, fish are scattered. They're not really concentrated yet. We haven't really had any decisive fronts that have moved through here that will put the accelerator down to the floor.
Yeah.
And before we forget, flounder is coming up on a closed season for the next month and a half.
Seasonal closure.
Yeah, seasonal closure, which is new.
Yeah.
In addition, the minimum size was raised from 12 to 14 inches overall. And just so everybody knows, when you catch a flounder and throw it in the cooler and remain on the water for multiple hours afterwards, these fish shrink. So if it's 14 inches when you put it in, it could be 13 and a half later. And if the man comes by to check you later and puts the fish up on a scale or ruler, you might be a little undersized. So just be aware of that.
Yes,
but that doesn't mean catch a snook that's 33 and a half inches and hope that it'll shrink down to 30.
You don't want to play that game.
Nah.
Yeah, Mike Mahoney's sitting at home wondering just that thing, I'm sure. But you definitely got to watch out for that, especially when you're offshore fishing on long-range trips. We take that into account heavily, and we've faced that in the past. Fish do shrink over time on ice, and there's actually a rule of thumb behind that, but you want to pay attention to it for sure. And snook, redfish, and trout opening October 12th. When does that flounder seasonal closure begin?
October 15th.
Beautiful. All right. With that, we are going to take a short break, and we'll be back on the other side. Real Animals Radio Show, News Radio, WFLA. We'll be back.
In faded out blue jeans, good for nothing. At least that's the way it seems.
Gills Apparel was started by anglers looking for one thing: performance. Stylish, lightweight, comfortable apparel that keeps you cool and protected on the water or off. Cool Core technology offers all-day comfort in even the harshest environments while giving you amazing sun protection. See for yourself why Gills Apparel was the easy choice for the Real Animals fishing team. Check out the full line of men's and women's Gills Apparel at a retailer near you, or go to gills-gear.com. That's GILLZ gear.com. Gills Apparel, the official apparel sponsor of the Real.
Are you in the market to purchase or refinance a home?
Amazon
Netflix.
Prime or something like that.
No commercials on Netflix.
I don't have Netflix. And in fact, I haven't even rigged up the boxes that are.
I have no
TVs.
cable TV. I haven't had cable TV in my house since prior to college. So I think 2009 was the last time I lived in a home that had cable.
I just watch TV online.
Yeah. I just have the internet. That's all I got.
Lynn rags on me all the time.
Really, really good internet.
That's like, I got everything in boxes. It's like I bought an air fryer. It's still in the box. bought one of those other things. I don't know what the hell you even call it. It's in the box. Everything's in the box. I bought 2 DVD players. They're in the box.
Yeah. When we come back, we just got a very short segment at the very tail end. So I'm going to do the read thing, and then after that, we will. I'll give a quick offshore and nearshore report. If you want to follow that up with a quick inshore report, and we'll talk about the tides a little bit, the weather, and we'll wrap this sucker down.
Sounds like a plan.
Yep. It went by fast. It's a good thing.
Yeah. Well. Yeah, I definitely change where I fish, places I fish, based on the tides, the moon, and people that used to book trips with me, or when they would book trips with me, they would always want to tell me, well, I'll be in town on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th, and I'm going like, okay, well, let me pick the tide for you to fish or whatever, and the time. And some of them that, you know, they don't, they get what they get. But if somebody calls me and they say, well, I'm flexible, I'm like, I'm going to pick a time to pick you up or whatever, and a date based on the tide predictions. Of course, all that can go right out the window depending on which direction the wind's blowing, what the barometer's doing, and people just don't realize there's so many variables that affect fishing.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, Captain, you're a lousy captain. We didn't catch any fish. I said, would you notice the wind change?
Yeah.
Wind change?
Yeah.
I used to race sailboats. I would base a lot of things that I would do based on barometric pressure and changes. Okay.
Marina. Now your captains, Mike Anderson and Dylan Hubbard.
Captain Dylan Hubbard here, Real Animals Radio on News Radio 970, and Captain Ray in studio this morning with me. And Cap Mike is unfortunately out on the prowl. He's got his
on the prowl.
Yeah, on the prowl for fish, and he's got his junior pro staff event going on today. Definitely a very, very cool thing he's got going on.
And he's going to be up at that Star Banquet up there in Crystal River. I wish I was going to be up there.
Banquet.
It's awesome.
Yep. And we want to give a quick shout out to our friends at Affordable Roofing Systems. If you need a new roof or roof repaired, check out our friends at Affordable Roofing Systems. They understand that your roof is a very large investment and protects almost everything you own. Let Affordable Roofing Systems' 3 decades of experience and roofing knowledge guide you through this important process. Whether you need a shingle, metal, tile, or flat roof, Affordable Roofing Systems is your safest choice for repairs or replacements. Affordable Roofing Systems is defined by integrity, respect, and honesty, and has a personalized and professional approach to doing business. Call Affordable Roofing Systems today at 1-888-397-ROOF for your free estimate, or visit their website at affordableroofingflorida.com. And wanted to ask you, can you give me a quick fishing outlook for this week? What
Define
would you
quick.
do? Yeah, define quick. 2 minutes.
Okay, we got some slower tides coming up. So if you're going to be successful, and we're not looking at having a whole lot of wind, so you can't really have much of a wind-driven current. So the best opportunities you're going to find are probably in areas where we have constriction. In other words, what I mean is 2 land masses coming together or close together, where you create like a vortex and an increase in current. So you're going to have better opportunities for snook, trout, redfish, flounder, some other species around there. Find any kind of floating object, anywhere, go run around the beaches, and you might find some triple tail up inside Tampa Bay.
Cobia.
All the range markers and everything, you'll hold cobia, triple tail, and Spanish mackerel, because there's a buttload of bait up in the bay.
Yeah.
And anywhere you got bait, you're probably going to find fish. And if you're on the beaches near shore, look for diving birds, and always bring a pair of binoculars with you. If you're looking for schools of mackerel, kingfish, whatever, it's a real big help to have some binoculars. You get out just before sunrise, and if you scan the coast with your binoculars, you'll find diving birds, and they're going to be feeding on bait. And I guarantee
you know they make a thing called a radar, right?
We can put radar on a flats boat, or yeah, buddy.
I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, go ahead. My radar is on my phone.
Near shore, we use radars to find our schools of birds, and we definitely have a lot of mackerel and a few kingfish showing up near shore. Definitely looking forward to our first big cold front. Bring more of those fish in. We still got tons of lane snapper biting extremely well.
Crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, lane
That
snapper.
mangoes.
Yeah, lane snapper
mango
don't
snapper.
close until end of day, October 17th, so you still got some more time on the lanes. And mangrove snapper, as you stated, they're just chewing the bottom out of the boat out there, so definitely great chances on mangrove snapper, lane snapper, and the hogfish bite is starting to pick up. We caught 11 keeper hogfish this past Wednesday on our 5-hour half day, and it's that time of year where that bite starts getting better and better and better as that water temperature creeps down slowly. Plus, the gag grouper should hopefully get fired up here. They've been a little hit and miss lately, and we're hoping that they'll pick up as that water temperature comes down. But blackfin tuna are around offshore. We're seeing big scamp grouper, big vermilions, porgies, and we've got our for-hire red snapper season starting up here October 15th.
So that's not for recreational. It's just
federal for hire.
permitted.
Yeah, so the last 3 or 4 years, private recreational has seen an increased season from the FWC, and Governor DeSantis has been announcing that the last 3 years, and the federal for hire fleet has not any time in the last 4 years had an extension on their season. This is the first time, and that's because we're under the ACT or annual catch target for those red snapper. FWC still talking about red snapper for private recreational anglers, and that may or may not happen. That's more of an FWC thing, and the next commission meeting, who knows, but keep your fingers crossed if you're a private rec angler, or you can join the federal for-hire fleet October 15th through end of day November 5th. That is that short red snapper extension.
You know, Dylan, one thing you might want to bring up, you did an excellent video and it's on your website, about how all this fisheries management works. And really, anybody who's interested in trying to understand the whys and the hows of how these rules and regulations are made up, go to your website.
Yeah, and we posted it on the Real Animals Facebook page as well, the Hubbard's Marina Facebook, YouTube. You could check it out. Don't forget to check out tomorrow's show on 620 WDAE. They will be live from 7 to 9. That's Mike Mahoney himself, the legend, the myth. And October 26th, Captain Mike Anderson's got his virtual fishing conversation at Furman Newport Richie with Captain Steve Benton. And we will be back Saturday next week. I'll have Emily Muhlstein in the radio station for the Gulf Council. We'll be talking fishing regulations, fishing news, all that good stuff. Join us next week. And don't forget.
And the real Captain Mike Anderson will be.
Not yet. He won't be next week either.
No?
I'll be by myself.
Slacker.
But don't forget, if you're too busy to go fishing, you're just too darn busy. News Radio 970, Real Animals Radio Show. We'll see you next week.
Get you later.
Side by side,
The proceeding was a paid program paid for by Real Animals Fishing.
WFLA Tampa.
Thank you guys for watching this morning. Hopefully you enjoyed the show. And Cap Mike, hopefully we did an okay job. This is my second time hosting a radio show by myself, and I appreciate having the backup from an experienced co-captain here in the studio in the form of Ray Markham, the expert artificial angler, as he's well known for. And definitely enjoyed the show this morning. Hopefully you guys did too. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks for joining me. Appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Yeah, buddy.
All right, guys, we'll see you next week for another episode of the Real Animals Facebook stream on Saturday mornings. Again, don't forget tomorrow's Real Animals show on WDAE from 7 to 9 o'clock. Mike Mahoney and Pat will be there. Definitely going to be a good time and always entertaining, to say the least. And don't forget about our Sunday night shows every Sunday night, 8:30 p.m. live on the Real Animals, on Hubbard's, and on YouTube too. So don't forget, if you're too busy to go fishing, you're just too busy. We got beautiful weather this week. Get out there, get on the water, take a kid fishing. We'll see you next week.
What do you do in your spare time?
Nothing.